Welcome to the Flex Rental Solutions webinar. Today we're going to be talking about reports, all of the different types of reports that you can print, and the different options and settings that you can apply to the reports in your system. To start, I just want to explain the two different types of reports that are available in your system. First, you have instance level reports, and these are the reports that you see in the Workbench menu under the Reports section when you have any element open. So for example, I have a quote open right now, and these are the instance level reports that are available for a quote. If I look at a pull sheet, these are the instance level reports for a pull sheet. An invoice, I don't have any instance level reports enabled for my invoice right now, but we'll show how to do that in just a minute. The other type of report is the the definition level report. These are the reports that you find on the Reports menu up along the toolbar here. And these ones are more, for example, like if you want to print a summary of quotes, or if you want to print a list of quotes that are based on a certain criteria, that's what a definition level report will do. Same with your pull sheets. You could do a batch print, invoices, and then you have a lot of definition level reports that have to do with your inventory, like you have a free scan in and out report, decommissioned, deleted items, etc. So those are your definition level reports. You can control which of your instance level and definition level reports, which ones are available and enabled on the Projects menu. Then go to Project Elements. And let's look at the quote, for example. If you double click on any of those elements and then go to the Reports tab, then that's where you can control which reports are enabled or disabled. So first you can see we have the instance level reports section. I could go through and enable any number of these reports, and then these reports would show as available to print in the Workbench menu of my quote. So for example, let's enable a budget summary, and then let's enable a few of these different quote looks. And this is what we often will recommend to new customers that want to see some of the different built-in quote looks, is to just go to the project element settings of the quote, enable any of them that look interesting to you, and then click Update. And now if we go back to our quote and let's reopen the quote so that these changes will take effect, then you can see that I have a number of reports that are now enabled in the Reports section here. And I could click on any of these and see the different looks and the different format of each of those reports. To enable more of the definition level reports, again, you'll do this in each of the different project element settings. So right now I'm still in the element settings for quote on the Reports tab. Then you'll go down to the definition level reports here and check which ones you want to be available on the Reports menu. So for example, let's choose the quotes forecasting report. That's currently not enabled. So we'll click the checkbox to enable it, and then we'll click which statuses we want to be included in the quotes forecasting report. So I'll choose confirmed, inquiry, and tentative. Then I'll click Update. And now if I go to the Reports menu and quotes, then you can see that I might have to do a full reset of my browser for that to take effect, but after that reset, then you would see here the quotes forecasting report would be available. And you could enable any of these definition level reports. And again, the same goes for any of our elements. We could click into the pull sheet and go to the Reports tab, and we would see similar options. Of course, the instance level reports are based on equipment lists instead of financial documents now, and the definition level reports are a little bit less. but you can enable whichever one of those you want. So let's stick with the quote project element settings for just a minute. And the last place that we want to look at is the default print format report section. This is where you can build what I like to call a stack of reports that will be printed whenever you click Generate PDF or Send to Client. It will be the PDF that is sent to the client. A lot of our customers like to build a stack of reports that might include something like the budget summary. So you would choose which report you want to add, and then you'll click Add, and that will add it to the list. And then they would choose a quote look, either the default financial document or maybe something like quote with pricing look B. And then they might choose a terms and conditions document, the terms and conditions which will be pulled from their corporate identity or their location settings. And so now when I click Generate PDF, it's going to print these 3 reports in order. And of course I could move these around if I want to put the terms and conditions first and then the quote. I'll click Update, and let's just give it a quick test. If we go back to our quote and click Generate PDF, then we should have first the summary page, then the terms and conditions, and then the quote itself. And again, that will be what prints when you click Generate PDF, and when you click Send to Client, that will be the PDF that is sent to the client. And we'll show a couple more options here once we get into static reports and some of the reports that you can add to this. But before we finish with this, I just want to show the corporate identity and location settings. You can set these up if you have multiple corporate identities or multiple locations in your system. And whichever corporate identity or location that you're using on a quote, then this default print format report will pull whichever settings you have set here. So what I mean by that, for example, let's delete all these really fast and start from scratch. You could do something like this where you say, I want the budget summary agreement look A to only print when I'm using, let's try the locations. Only when I'm using my Salt Lake City location. And then I only want the quote with pricing look B to print when I'm using the Salt Lake City location. But then I could also say, I want the budget summary and agreement look D to print when I'm using my West Valley location. So you can add all of these to the default print format report. And then when I go to create a new quote, if I am using my Salt Lake City location, that warehouse, then it will only print the reports that have the location set for Salt Lake City. Same with the corporate identities. I could switch this back to all locations. Let's delete these. And I could say I only want, for example, the default terms and conditions to print when I'm using one of my particular corporate identities. So that's what those settings are. And just always remember that even after you've added and made any changes to this, always click Update for the changes to take place. Let's quickly look at static reports. Static reports are reports that you can add to your system that don't necessarily take any information from Flex. So essentially these are just going to be a PDF document that you designed that has its own information that you can use within Flex and print in this default print format report. So let's show a couple examples to show exactly what I'm talking about. You'll go to System Settings, then click Static Reports, and then we'll click New Static Report. I want this to be a custom cover page that I created outside of Flex. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. This is going to be an instance level report, and you could choose the paper size and orientation if you want. They're not required, but you can choose those. And then you're going to update the PDF from your computer. So I created this Flex cover page. It's not a particularly great cover page, but it's good for this example. And so really all it is our logo and just kind of a quick blurb talking about the quote and the credit card authorization, which we will upload in just a second. So I'm uploading this entire PDF into my Flex system. I'll click Create. And this is now a static report that I can use in my system. Let's add one more static report, and then we'll show how we can use these in our quote. So I'm going to call this the credit card authorization. Again, it's an instance level report. I'll keep it as US letter and portrait. And this one is just a credit card authorization form that we created that just has the information that the customer is going to fill out. So we'll open that, create. So now I have two static reports in my system. Let's close these out and go back to Projects, Project Elements, and look at the quote. I might have to close that down and reopen it so that the new static reports will show as available. So now you can see in our instance level reports we have a cover page and a credit card authorization. I'm not going to enable those to be available to print just by themselves, but what I'm going to do is add them to my default print format report. So first I'm going to choose the cover page, then click Add, and then I'm going to choose, let's just do the default financial document, then click Add. Then let's do the default terms and conditions, and then let's do the credit card authorization static report. I'll click Update, and now when I go to the Generate PDF on a quote, it's going to print all four of those reports, the static reports and the dynamic reports that are built into Flex. So first I have my cover page, then I have the quote, then I have the terms and conditions, and then there's the credit card authorization form. So that's how you can use static reports in your system. A lot of our customers will upload static reports in their system that are several pages of marketing material. We have a lot of wedding companies that will upload pictures of the weddings that they can do, or DJ companies that will upload PDFs that have pictures of their lighting or their DJ setups and things like that. So static reports are really great for marketing material that you might want to attach to your quotes. And that's how you can upload static reports and then add them to your default print format report. The last thing that we want to look at in terms of reports are the report preferences and report groups that are found on the System Settings menu. First, let's look at report preferences. These are all of the built-in reports, and also if you have uploaded any static reports, those will show in here as well. And let's look at that quote with pricing look A, for example. We'll just double click on that and it'll pop up the preferences for that particular report. You can give it a default format and page orientation, but really what a lot of people use this for is the authorized groups. So say for example that we have, and let's go back to the projects, project elements, and the quote. And let's say that we have the quote with pricing look A, which we already do, enabled to print when we're on the quote screen. And so it's right here. We can see that, we can click on that and just print quote with pricing look A. But if we go back to the preferences for quote with pricing look A, we could say I only want administrators and maybe accounting to be able to print that report. So if I enable only those two groups to be able to print that report, those authorized groups, if, say for example, a shop tech were to log in and open this quote, they would not see that report as available to print. If none of them are selected, then that means there are no security restrictions, and anybody can print that report. But the second you check any box, then it's only limited to that particular, anyone that's assigned to that security group will be able to print that report. The second thing we want to look at in the preferences is the report groups. So as you can see here, you can enable a report group for this particular report. Right now I don't have any report groups set up, so let's do that by going to the System Settings menu and clicking Report Groups. And really what a report group is, this will be an additional option that we can add to the pop-up screen when we're printing any particular report. If that doesn't make sense, let me just show you a quick example, and it should make perfect sense after that. So this is an option that I want to call Cover Page. The extension is going to be a financial document, or actually I believe this one, it might be a financial document. I might have to change that. And then we're going to say it's going to come before the first page because it's a cover page. And when I click Create, it's going to give me the option to now choose the reports. And I'm going to choose that cover page that we uploaded as a static report earlier. But you could also choose like the budget summary, Look A or Look B. In fact, let's do that. Let's say the available reports are the static report cover page that we uploaded earlier, or any of these budget summaries. And then I could also say which one is the default report. Which one is it going to default to when I click the report and the window pops up? Let's say it's the cover page. And now let's enable this report group. Again, we'll go to System Settings, Report Preferences, and we're going to look at Quote with Pricing Look A. And we're going to enable that report group that we just created by clicking Enable Report Group and then choose that here. Then we'll click OK and then click Update. And so what's going to happen now is if we go to create that Quote with Pricing Look A report, it's giving us a new option here now on the pop-up that's saying, do you want to print a cover page with it? It defaulted to that cover page because that's the one that we chose as the default, but we could easily choose either of the budget summaries, or we could choose none if we only want to print the Quote with Pricing Look A by itself. But let's choose the budget summary Look D. When we click Generate Report, it's going to first print the budget summary and then the quote. One thing that I'll mention here is that you can only use these report groups for individual reports like this. It's not going to work with your Generate PDF or with your Send to Client. So if you're utilizing report groups, then you'll just have to click the individual report to print it, and then that will generate the PDF. And if you're sending it to a client, you'll have to send it via your own email. Let's just quickly create a couple more report groups. And again, that was on System Settings and Report Groups. And I just want to show you a couple more examples of how people use these. Some people will do a terms and conditions. Conditions. Again, this will be a financial document extension, and we'll do this one after the last page. Click Create, and then we can choose which default terms and conditions. Let's choose the Terms and Conditions Look A and Terms and Conditions Look B. So these will be the reports that are available to us. And you could choose a default if you want. Let's not do it for this one. Then we'll go back to Report Preferences, find the Quote with Pricing Look A, and we're going to add that report group that we just created. I think I have to close it and reopen it so that the changes will take effect. A lot of times you'll have to do that in Flex. When you create something new, you'll have to close a screen down and reopen it for the changes to take effect. So we're going to add the Terms and Conditions report group. And let's actually add one more report group that we're going to call the Credit Card Authorization. We'll just call it CC Auth. financial document extension, and let's say, again, it's after the last page. And this time, the only available report we have is the credit card authorization. We'll click Add, then Update. And then we'll go back to the, let's see, where was that? The report preferences. Let's reopen the report preferences for quote with pricing look A and enable that last report group, credit card authorization. Then we'll click Update. And if we go back to the quote one last time and print the quote with pricing look A, now you can see all of these different report group preferences that we have. I could say I only want to print the quote, nothing else, so I just leave these as none. Or I could say I want the cover page, I want these terms and conditions, I want this credit card authorization. And so it will print all of those together. And again, just to reiterate, this only works for each individual report as you print it, as you click on it and print it itself. You can't necessarily set that up for the Generate PDF. For the Generate PDF, again, that was in the project element settings and under the default print format report. So really there's a couple ways that you can print multiple reports at the same time. It just depends on whether or not you want to send it directly to your client from Flex, which you can do with this default print format report, or if you want to just be able to click on an individual report, save it to your hard drive, and then send it to your client with your own email program. The one last thing that we'll look at, if you want to delete any of the report groups, you just hover over it until it turns that kind of light green, then click on it, and then you can click Delete. So that is an overview of reports in Flex. Again, we looked at instance level and definition level reports, the instance level being the ones you can print from the quote or from the element itself, and the definition level being the reports on the reports menu. We looked at the default print format report where you could print a stack of reports when you click Generate PDF or when you click Send to Client. We looked at report preferences where you can authorize certain reports to only be printed by certain security groups. And we looked at the report groups that you can add to each report so that when you click on that particular report in the element, it will give you a few more options that you can choose as you're printing. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about during this webinar, or any other questions at all about reports, then please email support@flexrentalsolutions.com.